Hello and welcome to episode 29 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast with me, Will Brown. We have another podcast where we discuss another win at home. We continue our unbeaten form at home, 2 wins and a draw. And on the panel tonight, we have Ian, Julian, Guy, and Ash to discuss the Maidenhead game, the 4-3 win, and look ahead to Rochdale at home at the weekend on DAZN at 5:30, and the Ebbsfleet away game next Tuesday. So that's about it, to be honest. The only other thing I was going to mention was we're looking at doing another all-time 11 in the future at some point, and we'd like to do an international 11. So any suggestions of we'll get the obvious ones. Your Oliver Bosinac's. We'll get your Guy Madjos, for example. But any niche ones, any wild countries that you think that Aldershot have crossed off over the years, and we can build them into an 11 and discuss them and see who best fits. So if you email atfcpodcast@gmail.com with any suggestions, or at ATFC Podcast on Twitter or X, or just comment on the Facebook post, whatever. I'll see them all. So enjoy the episode and buon appetito. So here we are. Aldershot are sitting pretty in 7th position, having scored the most goals in the league, conceded the 20th most, but we won't worry about that too much. Aldershot beat Maidenhead 4-3 at the weekend in a now standard Widdrington kind of game. With the shots going ahead in the 3rd minute through James Henry. We'll come back to him, I'm sure, plenty, before conceding 8 minutes later through Abrahams and Reece Smith's assist to take it past Ollie Scott, Akpan on the right. And that's the way it stayed until half-time. Ollie Scott made it 2-1 in the 57th minute. Corbett finally got his goal 5 minutes later. But that was not before Abraham scored again in between that. So real ding-dong battle. And then Hadi Gandor made it 4-2, and then Kevin Loco scored. I mean, I've watched the replay just before we started recording, and still very unsure how they decided that Kevin Loco gets a touch there. Yeah, where do we start? I'm going to come to you first, Ian. It's your first time live on the pod this season. What were your thoughts on the Maidenhead game on the weekend?
Yeah, thanks, Will. Great to be back. Really, really enjoyed the Maidenhead game. And yes, it was very much picking up on where we left off last season. Just thinking about the sort of results in general, I mean, how many 3-3 draws had I watched in 20 odd years of watching Aldershot, and seen like 3 or 4 in a year, plus a 4-3. Can only think of 1, 2 other 4-3s in the sort of 20 years that I've been a regular. But yeah, it is incredible. Good to see us attacking. I think I'd have been fuming if we hadn't got all 3 points there. Maidenhead seemed pretty standard Alan Devonshire side, weren't they? They gave the defence some problems, and yeah, the defence for Aldershot is slightly different personnel from last year, isn't it? But it seems like the same vulnerabilities remain. But very impressed going forward. Henry was excellent, and obviously Gandor coming on. Now he's got his goal at the start of the season. It was good to see him take another. And also, yeah, I'm a massive fan of Cameron Hargreaves already. He's really going to impress, whereas James Henry, yes, I'm sure we'll keep hold of him, but it feels like a sort of Ray Warburton testimonial year type signing, doesn't it, with James Henry?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I thought it's slightly different. It's like a kind of new relationship, and I already want to scream "I love you" at him. And before the inevitable crumbling about 10 games in. But yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, his opening goal, half volley into the just a casual from the same position he scored against um, Oldham as well. So he seems to just love that little area, little pocket inside the box. Julian, I'm going to come to you because Maidenhead's first goal. You mentioned Reece Smith last week on the pod. He completely done his defender. What did you think of the game in general as well?
Yeah, it was. I was sort of eating my words really. I was thinking either he's been listening to the pod or we haven't been listening to the pod. But yeah, I always knew he was going to be a danger, and it proved to be the case. He was a tricky customer. My honest opinion, I don't think he should be playing in this league anymore. He's an EFL player in the making for sure. But from the shots point of view, absolutely love James Henry's performance. He's getting fitter. He was everywhere. And as you mentioned, that touch for the first goal was just something you don't see at this level. It was just superb. And the way he just finished it, how many times have we seen that sort of just touch and finish? It's very rare for this level of football. So I think he's going to get even better. He's he's looking like a 90-minute player now, and he was everywhere. The I can't remember which goal it was, but Akpan down the right hand side found him in space. Again, he's making those sorts of runs which are really intelligent. He knocked the ball into the centre really quickly for Gandor, and it's Corbett's goal, wasn't it? And he was just everywhere. So excited to see where he's going to end up. One other thing I was really pleased for, I was calling for Jack Barham to start on Saturday in the last pod, but Tommy knows best. He kept faith with Corbett, and thank thank God he did, because again I thought he played really well, and the second goal for Scott was down to him. He lost the ball okay in the middle, but he didn't give up. He got it back, fed Scott, who then did that beautiful little dummy off of his left foot and placed it with his right into the corner. And then, of course, he got his goal in front of the East Bank, which seems to be quite a popular thing these days, is to get your first goal in front of the East Bank now. So really pleased for him. Yes, 4-3, as Ian said, it's not really much change from last year, but was a little bit concerned by the defence. We seem to be standing off. I know the flavour of the month now is to sort of show the striker onto his weaker foot, but for Abrahams to be able to bring a ball down from the sky and turn and then place his shots, you're not going to, you can't be giving these guys that sort of time. And again, with I think the first goal, Reece Smith did a good job on the wing and just knocked it into the centre. So lots to learn, lots of things to work on. I guess that one question I'd put to everyone out there is, is the Dewhurst and Yordi conundrum, whether we stick with Dewhurst or go with Yordi. There's some competition there. Who is the number one? I'm not sure that can be cleared up at the moment, but I would stick with Dewhurst personally, because I think he's still a really good shot stopper. And again, there were a couple of moments in the game where I think he did prevent a goal or two. So if I was to answer my own question, then I would keep with Dewhurst for the moment. I don't know what the others think.
Yes, it was. Yeah, we'll definitely come on to that as we go through. I'm sure everyone's got thoughts on Dewhurst and Geordie, but just to mention Geordie, I mean, I just stood in the East Bank at half time. Geordie was just kind of cast adrift from the warm up that the subs were doing, just doing keepy uppies. Did a bit of crossbar challenge from the halfway line. Didn't get it on target, so I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with Geordie and his. I mean, I suppose he's there if something goes wrong, but he didn't seem fully engaged in the warm up. I'm not sure if that's just a thing that's going on there. But yeah, you mentioned Kai Corbett getting his first goal in the league, and just that those three players, Gandor, Henry, and Corbett, working brilliantly together. I think there was the move. before the second goal, I think, or maybe it was after Abrahams had equalised. But Henry feeds Gandor, runs into space, picks it back up, slots it across to Corbett, and then Corbett gets a shot away. I mean, he somehow gets it off target, and you wouldn't have thought he was in for a goal later on, but he did finally get his goal, and it was that combo again. So brilliant to see. Very happy for him. Guy, I'm going to come to you next. What were your general thoughts on the Maidenhead game at the weekend?
Well, I mean, I concur with both what Ian and Julian have said. So rather than sort of repeating what they pointed out, the things that stood out for me beyond, the somewhat leaky defense is also the fact that we've been changing the defense around a little bit. We've seen a bit of change in terms of the personnel in Saturday's game with sort of games at the start of the season. So clearly, I suspect there's probably some efforts within the club to try and find which is the defense that works, because ultimately it looks like the Aldershot team is Widrington. Well, you've talked about Widball, right? It seems to be a feature rather than a glitch that we just give up goals, and usually several minutes after we've scored. I mean, it is incredibly frustrating to take the lead, do all that hard work and then to just give it away. And some of those goals, like the first one, I thought was a bit soft. That third one that Maidenhead put in as well, also, really wasn't well defended. But just to come to Julian's question about Dewhurst or Yordi, I mean, I would say that actually Dewhurst inspires a bit more confidence for me than Geordie was last year, even though Geordie was better than the goalkeeper we had a couple of years ago as well. It does, of course, raise the question for Geordie himself as to, I mean, he was brought in, wasn't he? I assume to be the number one keeper, and so now being number two, that's got to prey on his mind, and whether he stays is another matter. So for me, I mean, Dewhurst it does inspire a certain degree of confidence. I guess there's chopping and changing though in terms of the personnel in front of him. Other things, but let's move to some of the more positive stuff. Other things that stood out for me, it was great to see Hadi Gandor score again, because he hadn't had a goal in a few games. That's got to prey on your mind a bit. So encouraging, as well as the fact that we're getting goals from around the pitch. So we're not dependent on one player at the moment. That's got to be important. And I was really quite impressed by Akpan in midfield as well. I thought that was a really that he showed a lot of confidence. He was moving around a lot. I was very pleased with what I saw from him, and I understand he's an academy graduate as well, right? So that's really great to see that kind of quality coming through. Yeah.
I mean, Akpan's looked very comfortable. I think, me and my mate Dan remarked that it seems like in training they just kind of hump the ball across to him at about 50 yards. He just sticks on the other side, and they just ping a ball over to him, chests it down, knees it down. Because he was right on the line most of the times, and that it was bringing it down beautifully and bring the ball forward. So I think that was important for Saturday as well. And Ash, going to come to you. Any final thoughts on the Maidenhead game, and I guess your take on Dewhurst or Geordie?
Yeah, so most of the stuff that I had on my notes has been obviously said through, so I won't repeat a lot of the stuff I had. Completely agree with Guy's analysis on Akpan. I thought he was a hidden gem in the game. I think also a very important player we need to keep fit. Again, Theo Widrington. He seems to be that engine in that midfield. He's always outnumbered in that centre midfield position, but he always seems to get that ball forward. Defensively, it is a little bit of a concern, but we haven't had I don't believe the same back three since we'd had the 1-0 against Halifax. So that goes to show there is some injury concerns there. Maybe worth looking at maybe some more depth within that position to really shore it up, to give like Jenkins, when he comes back, a chance to get in. For the Geordie versus Dewhurst, I've watched Dewhurst quite a lot last season when he was playing. On highlights and things like that. And the one thing I've inherently noticed against the bigger, more physical side, he doesn't seem to really dominate and catch the balls in the area, which is maybe where Geordie should be coming in. for your Tamworths, your Braintrees. You've got a 6'5" keeper who's going to catch that ball and make sure he commands the area aerially. I think overall Dewhurst is a better keeper. I think his just distribution's just so much better, and you don't feel like he's just going to lose the ball when he has it. He is a little bit. Does sometimes you go, oh, is he going to lose it? But you've just got more confidence with him. But I think Geordie has a place. I think that's the answer to the question for the Geordie Dewhurst.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'd say with Dewhurst, it took me a while to figure out which was his like better foot. I think he kicks with his right and left like pretty much the same. He kicks through the ball both times, whereas I think Geordie with his weaker foot was kind of putting a bit of bend on the ball to get it a bit further, and it was kind of looking like he was like whipping across the ball rather than kicking through the ball and getting it up to the halfway line. But I mean, yeah. Ian, have you got any thoughts on the Dewhurst or Geordie or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. There's not a lot between them, but I think the fact that he bought Dewhurst in the summer means that he's starting and also should continue in that he's not done anything that means that we should be chopping and changing. I was, excuse me, I was also quite surprised that we did actually keep Yordi on the books. I did wonder whether he would be retained. There were various things about Yordi last season I liked, but also a number of games where, yeah, it was a bit of a horror show and I was quite concerned. But I think Dewhurst for now needs to continue and needs to have that run of games.
Yeah, and I guess as Ash has said as well and alluded to, that he's not had the same kind of back three or the same central defender nearest him so far since the Halifax game. So he's probably might be taking a little while to get used to who's in front of him, and they're kind of the foibles of Maghomer or Jenkins or Bird in those positions. Yeah, the only other two things I didn't mention, James Henry, that was his 5th league goal of the season. So he's joint top goal scorer alongside Doige and Horton of Forest Green and Fylde, respectively. And this is the first time since 2013-14 that the first 3 home attendances have been over 2,000. And I think in each of these ones, there have been over 2,000 home fans. So that's very encouraging. It was quite interesting to go back. There's quite a few there that were like, we had the first 3 games are all like in the 1900s, but interesting we've not had 3 games at the start of the season with 2,000. So yeah, attribute that to the exciting brand of football that Widdrington is putting on, despite prices continuing to go up by about £1 a year. Great. Has anyone got any other thoughts on the Maidenhead games or overall home form or 10 plus goals in the first 3 home games?
Yeah, the only thing I'll just add is that with our 15 goals that we've scored, we are the top scorers in the country at the moment. And it's not often we say that. So, when we get on to talk about Rochdale coming to us, who I think are probably one of the strongest defences that we will have to face this season as well, it's going to be a really interesting battle, I think, on Saturday. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention, because it's not going to be for too long that we can say we're top scorers in the country.
Come on, it's us and City now. We just got to match Haaland. Anything he does, Hadi Gandor's got to do. Well, yeah, let's move on to the Rochdale game. And as you said, Julian, they are a stern defence. They've only conceded 2 goals in the first 6 games. It's the least in the league by some way already. So if that trend continues, they'll almost certainly be in the playoffs, I presume, as they can keep scoring. And they've scored 8. 6 of those goals came in 2 games, and 3 of those in the last game, where they won 3-0 against Woking. Jimmy McNulty, former central defender, is in a dugout for Rochdale. He's been there since 2015 as a player, and then he was put in kind of temporary caretaker charge in 2022, and then again in 2023. before getting a full-time job at the end of that season. The only other note I made was that Odie Alpha is in their squad and seems to get some sub appearances. If you remember Odie Alpha, I am struggling to remember much about him. I'm sure he's come up at some point. And a reminder that it's a 5:30 kickoff and it's on DAZN or DAZN. And nobody's ever said it out loud, so I'm not sure how to say it. You can also get it on National League TV, I think. So just do that and save yourself the hassle of DAZN. Grand. Ian, how are you feeling about Rochdale at home at the weekend?
Yeah, looking forward to this one. Yeah, our crazy attack and defence against Rochdale's. They've only conceded 2. Julian mentioned very tight defence, so interesting to see what happens here. I do wonder if defence will prevail in this one, and we're going to need a little bit more to unlock them than we've shown previously. But excited about this one. I'm going to look to attend the game because I'm working early on Saturday, but a 5:30 kickoff actually helps me out. It means I'll be able to make the trip over in time. Otherwise, I'll be looking to borrow a login off somebody, one of my friends that watches boxing, because I think that's their main streaming platform.
Nice. I will not be in attendance. I'll be at the Oval day 2 of the test against Sri Lanka. But yeah, that basically assumes it will be a 0-0 because the games I've seen, I've not seen the Halifax and I didn't see Braintree, so I've had brilliant goals per pound spent so far this season. Julian, we'll come to you then. How are you feeling up against Rochdale's defence on the weekend?
Yeah, I'm feeling confident. You know, if you look at our home form, not only this season but last season as well, it's becoming a bit of a fortress. The EBB now. You know, teams are having to think differently about when they come to us, and of course, Rochdale got quite comfortably beaten last season by us. And I know after that match, Jim McNulty was not best pleased with his team and felt that they were a little bit sluggish. So you can imagine that his team talk will be along the lines of, you know, let's make sure we don't do the same mistakes as we did last year. And yeah, I agree with what Ian's saying there. They've got a tough defence. I sort of put Rochdale in the Halifax category. Yeah, they're good defence, good solid northern team, probably a little bit light in attack. But as you pointed out, Will, they did beat the Woking 3-0 last week, so they have got the ability to score. A couple of their players stand out for me. There's a lad called Cairo Mitchell, who was formerly with Notts County, who has got a little bit to prove at this level. He was sort of Notts County's third choice striker behind Macaulay Langstaff and the other name escapes me. But he was third choice and never really got a look in there. So he's got a point to prove. So I got a feeling that he will be their potential danger man this season. So we're going to have to keep an eye out for him. But confidence-wise, yeah, I'm really confident with, to be honest, whoever comes to the EBB now is always going to be nervous. So I think we can get a win in this one for sure.
Nice. I saw Tuesday they signed Dan Sassy on a 2-month loan from Blackpool. He was at the club last season on loan as well, so an extra defender for them to take to us on the weekend. And Guy, I'll come to you. How are you feeling against a kind of slightly more defensive orientated team?
Well, yeah, I guess that's this makes this a real test, doesn't it? Because it's effectively, you know, top free scoring team in the league versus the most miserly one. So if we can't score, I mean, this is where we're going to really see whether we can actually put goals past, because we've done it against other teams, but against this team that's been so tight at the back, it's going to be a challenge. I'm not, unlike Julian though, I'm not quite sure that I would say that. Yes, we've been, you know, our performances at home have been much better this season and last season compared to previously, but the fact that we're still leaking goals always leaves me worried a bit that, you know, we're going to see a team snatch something like Tamworth the other week. Luckily, it's not been at home yet, but I think until we shore things up at the back, it's a real test. I was just looking before we went, before we sort of met at the odds that are being sort of put out in terms of betting, and it seems that the betting companies broadly, the aggregate, are suggesting that it's more likely to be a draw than anything else, and veering more, whereas that seems to be the predominant prediction, it's veering more towards an away victory as opposed to a home win. So, I think we do have our work cut out a little bit, I think, against Rochdale this weekend.
Nice. I like the suggestion there that it can't be a fortress if you're conceding lots of goals. I'd like to dig into that at some point because I'm thinking medieval. Like if your fortress is getting breached quite a lot, but you're still winning the battles. I mean, I don't know. Let's not get into it now. Ash, have you got anything you'd like to add about the Rochdale home game at the weekend?
Well, let's see if we have another 3-3, 4-3. That would be terrible for everyone's blood pressure and everything else at the ground. I have watched highlights for Rochdale throughout the season. They're looking a very impressive outfit. As we saw with Forest Green, they put 3 past us here at our ground, and they got the 0-0 draw when Forest Green went there. Very impressive results against an informed Woking. They just dismantled them. I don't think Woking had a shot on target. So we know that they're very organised in that central area. I think what it will come down to is if Aldershot go and score in the 3rd minute, like we seem to always do, I think it will open up the floodgates on both ends. I think they will really push it through. But if Rochdale get the early goal, I can see a repeat of Halifax last season at home, where they just sit everyone back and we just attack. And we luckily in that one squeezed a goal out of the end to win the game. But I can see Rochdale looking at getting the early goal and then just sitting back and going, right, we've got the lead. You've got to come to us, because it was kind of what they did at Woking in their last game. So it will be a tough test. I think we have enough quality to edge it, because their away form seems to not be quite as good as their home form. But you never ever know with the team at the moment. Just hope for more entertaining football.
Yeah, great. It will. It'll be interesting to see how. I mean, obviously, I assume most of it will be on the counter, but we have struggled against the counter most of the times this season. I think a lot of the goals that have come when it looks like the defense is all out of position, there's only 2 men back. I mean, it's been because we've piled just that extra player forward, or the defender's gone forward an extra 10 yards and left his man. So it'll be interesting to see how many players they leave up, and if they call Witherington's bluff. To try and score and win the game. So I guess we can move on to the next game after that, which is the Tuesday night game away at Ebbsfleet. And we've mentioned Ebbsfleet last week, and I think probably the week before as well. They're still without a win. They are without a win in the first 6. They're winless in the last 9 if we go back to last season, back to 6th of April, where they did just enough to stay up. Danny Searle, obviously the manager, and lots of ex-shots, as Joe mentioned or read off the list last week. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of Aldershot reject. Chance. Ebbsfleet next Tuesday. Ian, are you worried or confident?
I'll go in the middle on the fence, because everyone's got this is typical Aldershot. Ebbsfleet yet to win, assuming they don't win on Saturday. Danny Searle, all those ex-shots, it's a nailed-on home win. But I am quietly confident in our ability that this is the one where we're going to beat a team that we should beat.
I like that. I like that confidence. Is that a confidence you share, Julian?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know which one is going to turn up. My only worry is that so far, when we've played teams down the bottom, we just haven't performed. And if we don't perform against Ebbsfleet, then that will become a bit of a worrying statistic for me. I was just thinking back to this time last season when we played Ebbsfleet, and we weren't actually in it at all. Got beaten 2-0. A slightly different scenario though, because they had just been promoted. They were on the back of really confidence. boosting promotion. So that's the reason why I think they won that one. But yeah, I'm just not sure which Aldershot's going to turn up, or which as we've alluded to earlier, which of the back three are going to turn up as well. Meliese, hopefully, if he keeps his place, he will start to impose himself on the team a little bit more. I think I mentioned it last week that I think he does need a few games to get up and running. And again, Ebbsfleet, they've got their danger men as well. Dominic Polion scores goals for fun, and Samuel up front as well. Both two quite physical guys. I think we mentioned on the pod earlier on about standing up to the physicality of some of these teams. So we've got to show that side of our game a little bit more. I'm not convinced that we've stood up to those sort of tests so far this season. And whilst, as we've already said, Rochdale is going to be a tough defensive battle, I think that we've really got to stand up to Ebbsfleet as well and sort of dictate the play. And hopefully, I'm really hoping this is the game where Hargreaves and Theo have started the season really well. But I guess what I want to see from them is I want to see them to really grab hold of this game and take it by the scruff of the neck, and for us to dictate how the game is going to be played. And let's hope they can do that on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be up against probably a Jim Killerman in the central midfield. I'll go through the full list as Joe did last week, but of course Tyler Cordner at the back alongside Giles Phillips. At the weekend he came off and Craig Tanner came on. Nice change. Throwing on Aldershot players out of nowhere. Wesley Fongut came off for Toby Edzer, so another Aldershot player there. So I think that's no Kwame Thomas in the squad on Saturday, but he might turn up on Tuesday. Guy, how are you feeling? Confident or concerned ahead of Tuesday?
Well, I mean, judging by form, I would be confident against Ebbsfleet, less confident against Rochdale, but this is Aldershot, right? So it usually works the other way round. We tend to do pretty well against the teams further up the table and pretty poorly and down with those further down. And that's actually something we need to address, because if we're going to really be challenging for the playoff spots, we do need to have consistency. Right now, we're pretty lucky that we are where we are after 6 games, top half of the table, but it's home form that seems to be sort of helping there. And of course, given that we're playing Ebbsfleet away, I'm reminded of playing against Tamworth the other week, where we managed to sort of throw away a winning position and losing it in the last few minutes. I can well see that happening again, although, judging by form, I'm a lot more confident about this game than I am against Rochdale. I guess my worry would be if Kwame Thomas does make the squad, if they throw him on in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes, he did a very good job for us last year of just holding up the ball and just spoiling. And that would be a worry for me, if because I don't think we can be a bit weak against that, particularly the more sort of physical side of things. I know colleagues have talked about this in sort of previous weeks. So if Ebbsfleet decide to take a more physical approach, then I think potentially we have a problem there.
Nice, interesting. And Ash, how are you feeling? Concerned or confident ahead of Tuesday?
It's a lot of variance, but I am a little bit worried. Mainly the game before Ebbsfleet go to Altrincham, who are also struggling a little bit. They haven't got up to the start that they think they do. So they then go to Altrincham and get battered. Who says they don't have a manager change? We know how we're like with manager changes. If we assume that he's still in the job by then, they have been absolutely woeful. And that's from their fans as well that I've spoken to. But it's typical of us. I think Braintree have 1 win, Tamworth have 1 win, and it's both against us. So it's one of these that, it's one of these. I'm a little bit worried because I've seen the last 2 past performances against teams that have been struggling. And to be honest, the score lines that they've had have been absolutely atrocious, and they're due a performance. Let's just hope they have it on Saturday, and then they can have it on Tuesday, and we can get the 3 points there, and it would be happy for both teams.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'm sure Danny Searle would have watched the Braintree and Tamworth games intently, and he'll know to stick Cordner and Phillips in the box at every single opportunity, and try and win headers. And well, we'll see if we can find the answer to that, or score enough to stop that. I suppose the one thing we did mention last week was a little bit of a discussion about Kwame Thomas and his, have we got a replacement for his style when things are going slightly bad, or we need to protect the lead? Is there a plan B? So it was good to see Ollie Bray come off the bench in the final. I think it was just in added time, to be honest. I lose track of all these subs these days. 5 was wild. I think there was 4 in the last 5 minutes. So yeah, Ollie Bray came on, who looks, I think, about 2 inches taller. So I'm not sure if he's wearing some sort of platforms since last year, or he's just closer to me. I'm not sure. So good to see Ollie Bray in the squad and coming off the bench. And I think that's about it. We won't go through the table, but the headline news is Aldershot are currently in the playoffs and a positive goal difference. So note that down. That's 2 weeks in a row, positive goal difference. Thank you all for coming on. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ash. Thank you, Guy, and thank you, Julian.
Well, thank you.
No worries. Pleasure.
Yeah, I think I'm the only person at work that's got a Aldershot. Well, not an Aldershot. I mean, a kind of their own mug at work. Everyone just uses like the normal stuff. I've got an Aldershot mug, and I thought I'd instill some kind of like personality in the office. No one's followed. I don't appreciate the Pam's Florist style mug. It's fading now. To be fair, don't put it in the washing. Don't put it in the dishwasher. Don't put it in the washing machine either. That's another rule to tick off.